Most people are not defeated by reality. They're defeated by the voice in their own head that whispers, "You can't," before they even try. That voice will sound logical, cautious, even protective, but it has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. The truth is, you don't need more talent, more time, or the perfect conditions to begin. You need the decision to believe that you are capable of doing hard things even when you feel unready. Because the moment you choose belief over doubt, you stop negotiating with fear and start training your mind to move forward anyway. This is not about pretending things are easy. It's about understanding that you were built to handle what's difficult. And once you truly believe you can do this, your actions will follow, your courage will grow, and the person you were afraid you couldn't become will start showing up in your life. Your mind is the first place you will either surrender or take command, and most battles are lost there long before life ever puts pressure on you. The world doesn't wake up every morning plotting your failure, but your doubts do. They replay old mistakes, exaggerate risks, and convince you that staying where you are is safer than stepping forward. If you don't learn to challenge those thoughts, they will quietly decide your future for you. Winning in your mind doesn't mean you never feel fear or uncertainty. It means you refuse to let them make your decisions. It means you recognize that thoughts are not facts, and just because your mind imagines the worst outcome doesn't mean it's the truth. When pressure comes, you will not rise to the level of your hopes. You will fall to the level of your mental conditioning. If you've trained your mind to quit when things feel uncomfortable, you'll quit. If you've trained it to search for excuses, you'll find them instantly. But if you've trained it to stay steady, to focus, to move one step at a time, even when everything inside you wants to run, then you become dangerous in the best possible way. Because now, circumstances don't control you. You control how you respond to them. Strength is not loud. It's the quiet decision to hold your ground internally when chaos is happening externally. There will be moments when no one is coming to encourage you, no one is applauding, and no one even knows you're struggling. Those are the moments that define you. Not the big public victories, but the private decisions where you choose discipline over comfort and courage over avoidance. You have to become the person who can look at uncertainty and still move forward, who can sit with discomfort without needing immediate relief, who understands that growth often feels like pressure before it feels like progress. If you can master that, you remove the power from anything meant to intimidate you. Your thoughts will try to negotiate with you. Wait until you're more prepared. Start tomorrow. Maybe this isn't for you. But those delays slowly turn into distance between you and the life you want. The truth is, readiness is built through action, not before it. Confidence is earned by doing the very things you feel unsure about. Every time you act despite doubt, you send a message to your mind that fear is not in charge anymore. And once your mind learns that lesson, it stops treating challenges like threats and starts treating them like tasks. Win the battle inside, and the outside world becomes a different place. Obstacles don't disappear, criticism doesn't vanish, and difficulty doesn't suddenly become easy. But you become steady enough that none of it shakes you the way it used to. You stop asking, "What if I can't?" and start asking, "What's my next move?" That shift is where real power lives, because the person who has control over their own mind cannot be easily stopped, discouraged, or broken. And when you reach that point, you don't just believe you can do this, you know it. Fear has a way of convincing you that it arrived to protect you, when in reality, it often arrives to test you. Your body reacts, your thoughts speed up, and suddenly every worst-case scenario feels vivid and real. But fear is not a command, it's a signal. It's your mind alerting you that something matters, that something unfamiliar is in front of you, that you are stepping beyond the boundaries of what feels safe. If you misinterpret that signal as a warning to stop, you retreat and your world becomes smaller. If you interpret it as information, you lean in, you prepare, and you grow stronger. The difference between those two responses shapes the direction of your life. The people you think are fearless are not missing fear. They've just learned how to read it differently. They don't panic when it shows up, and they don't treat it like an enemy. They slow down, assess, and ask what the fear is trying to reveal. Maybe it's exposing a gap in preparation. Maybe it's highlighting a risk you need to manage. Maybe it's simply the discomfort of doing something new. When you approach fear with curiosity instead of avoidance, it stops controlling you and starts guiding you. It becomes a tool rather than a barrier, something that sharpens your awareness instead of shutting down your courage. Avoiding fear feels good in the moment, but it quietly builds a habit of retreat. Each time you step back, your confidence shrinks a little, and the next challenge feels even more intimidating. Facing fear does the opposite. Even if the outcome isn't perfect, you prove to yourself that you can stand in discomfort without collapsing. That proof is powerful. It rewires how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who needs safety to function and start seeing yourself as someone who can handle uncertainty. And once that identity shifts, your decisions change. You begin choosing growth over comfort because you trust your ability to adapt. Preparation is the bridge between fear and confidence. When fear shows up, instead of asking how to escape it, ask how to get ready. Learn more, practice more, think through your plan, strengthen your skills. Action transforms anxiety into focus. You move from imagining everything that could go wrong to building everything that could go right. Fear loses its intensity when it sees you moving toward the challenge instead of away from it. It realizes you're no longer available for intimidation. There will always be moments when your heart beats faster and your mind tries to pull you back into the familiar. That reaction doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important than comfort. When you treat fear as information, you stay alert without being paralyzed, cautious without being passive. You become someone who can walk into the unknown with open eyes and steady steps. And that is where belief is forged. Not in easy situations, not in predictable routines, but in those tense, uncertain moments when every instinct tells you to turn around and you choose to move forward anyway. Fear will always speak first, but it doesn't get the final word. The final word belongs to the part of you that understands you are capable of more than your instincts suggest. When you listen to that voice instead, fear stops being a stop sign and becomes a signal that you are exactly where growth begins. Confidence is not something you switch on when the spotlight appears. It is something you build quietly, repeatedly, long before anyone is paying attention. People often think confidence comes from praise, from recognition, from winning in front of others. But real confidence is earned in solitude. It's built in the early mornings when you choose discipline over sleep, in the late nights when you practice instead of scrolling, in the moments when quitting would be easier, but you stay anyway. No audience, no applause, no immediate reward. Just you deciding that who you are becoming matters more than how you feel right now. Those unseen hours stack up, and one day they become the strength people assume you were born with. When you prepare in private, you remove the need to perform in public. Pressure doesn't break you because you've already met discomfort on your own terms. You've rehearsed the hard conversations, repeated the difficult skills, faced your weaknesses without distraction. So when the moment comes and all eyes are on you, it doesn't feel like a test. It feels familiar. The environment may be different, but the demand is the same as it was when you were alone. Stay focused, stay steady, execute. Public pressure exposes what private discipline created. It reveals whether you relied on hope or on preparation. There will be days when no one notices your effort, when it feels like your work exists in a vacuum. That is where most people slow down because motivation fades without recognition. But this is exactly where the foundation is formed. If you can stay committed without validation, you become self-directed instead of approval-dependent. You stop needing constant reassurance to continue. You understand that the reward is not immediate attention, but long-term capability. The quiet work is not invisible. It is simply incubating, developing strength that will eventually show itself when it matters most. What you repeatedly do in private becomes your default under stress. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall back on your habits. If your habits are built on distraction, hesitation, and inconsistency, pressure will expose that instantly. If your habits are built on focus, repetition, and resilience, pressure will reveal that too. This is why small daily choices carry so much weight. Each one is a vote for the person you will be when the stakes are high. You are training your future self every time you choose effort over avoidance. When the public moment finally arrives, the opportunity, the challenge, the test you've been anticipating, it will feel sudden to everyone else. They will see the performance and call it talent, luck, or natural ability. They won't see the quiet preparation that made it possible, but you will know. You will recognize that the calm you feel is not accidental. It is earned. You will understand that belief in yourself didn't come from words or affirmations, but from evidence you created through action when no one was watching. And that realization changes how you carry yourself moving forward. You stop chasing confidence and start building it deliberately, knowing exactly where it comes from. You respect the process, even when it's lonely, even when progress feels slow, because you trust what those private efforts become. Confidence proven in public is simply the visible result of a private standard you refuse to lower. What you do when no one is watching is never wasted, even if it feels invisible in the moment. Those quiet decisions, to practice a little longer, to stay focused when distractions are easier, to correct yourself instead of ignoring your weaknesses, are shaping a version of you that the world hasn't met yet. It is easy to perform when attention is present. It is much harder to hold yourself to a high standard when there is no immediate consequence for lowering it. But that private integrity becomes your backbone. It ensures that when pressure arrives, you are not scrambling to become capable. You already are. There is a difference between being interested and being committed. Interest shows up when conditions are convenient. Commitment shows up regardless of mood, recognition, or comfort. In private, there are no rewards for commitment except progress itself, and that is why so many people abandon it. They underestimate how much those unseen repetitions matter. They don't realize that mastery is not built in bursts of inspiration, but in steady, often monotonous effort. When you continue anyway, especially on the days you feel unmotivated, you separate yourself from the version of you that only acts when it feels good. Public moments have a way of exposing the truth. When the stakes are high and the outcome matters, there is no time to fake preparation. Your mind will reach for whatever you have practiced most, not what you intended to practice. If you trained yourself to stay calm, you will find calm. If you trained yourself to panic, you will feel overwhelmed. This is why private discipline is not optional. It is predictive. It determines whether you meet challenges with clarity or confusion. The crowd may think your performance is spontaneous, but in reality, it is the result of countless deliberate choices made long before that moment arrived. There will be times when working in silence feels lonely, when it seems like everyone else is moving ahead while you are still refining, still preparing, still building. That feeling can tempt you to rush, to seek quick validation instead of long-term strength. But rushing produces fragility. It creates a surface-level confidence that collapses under real pressure. Taking the time to build deeply creates stability. It allows you to stand in difficult situations without needing constant reassurance because you trust the work you have put in. When you finally step into the public eye, whether it is an opportunity, a challenge, or a responsibility, you won't need to convince yourself that you belong there. Your preparation will speak for you. You will recognize the tasks in front of you because you have faced versions of them before, alone, without noise or expectation. The environment may feel intense, but internally, you will remain steady. That steadiness is the reward for every moment you chose effort over ease when no one would have known the difference. And once you experience the power of that preparation, you stop seeking shortcuts. You understand that real confidence cannot be borrowed or imitated. It must be constructed piece by piece. You begin to value the unseen work because you know it is the only work that guarantees you will not fold when it matters most. In the end, The world doesn't just witness your public success. It witnesses the private discipline you carried into the light. You don't need permission to change your life, to raise your standards, or to step into a version of yourself that feels stronger than the one people are used to. Waiting for approval is a quiet trap because it feels responsible, polite, even wise, but it keeps you living inside boundaries that were never meant to hold you. No one is going to arrive and announce that it's finally your turn to be confident, decisive, or bold. That moment has to be claimed, not granted. The longer you wait for someone else to validate your direction, the longer you postpone becoming who you already feel you could be. People will sometimes resist your growth, not because they want to harm you, but because your change forces them to confront their own comfort zones. When you start speaking with certainty, setting limits, or pursuing goals that once intimidated you, it disrupts the expectations others had of you. Some will question you, some will doubt you, and some will subtly try to pull you back to the version of you that felt easier for them to understand. If you rely on their approval, you will shrink to keep the peace. If you rely on your own conviction, you will expand even if it creates temporary discomfort. Power is not loud, aggressive, or performative. Real power is quiet self-possession. It is the ability to make decisions without needing consensus, to walk away from what diminishes you, to pursue what strengthens you even when it's unpopular. It shows up in the way you carry yourself, in the boundaries you enforce, in the discipline you maintain when distractions invite you to drift. You don't have to announce it or prove it. In fact, the more secure you become, the less you feel the need to explain yourself at all. There will be moments when stepping into that strength feels unfamiliar, almost like you are pretending to be someone else. That discomfort is not a sign you are doing something wrong. It is a sign you are outgrowing an old identity. For a long time, you may have played small to avoid criticism, rejection, or conflict. You may have convinced yourself that humility meant invisibility. But there is a difference between being humble and being silent about your capabilities. Owning your strength does not diminish others. It gives them permission to do the same. When you stop waiting for permission, your decisions become clearer. You stop asking whether you are allowed to pursue something and start asking what steps are required to make it happen. You stop apologizing for taking up space and start using that space intentionally. Responsibility replaces hesitation, action replaces overthinking, and with every step forward, you build evidence that you are capable of directing your own life. The truth is, no one can hand you authority over yourself. It was always yours, but it only becomes real when you exercise it. The moment you decide that your growth is not negotiable, that your goals do not require unanimous support, that your voice deserves to be heard even if it shakes at first, you cross a line internally. From that point on, you are no longer waiting to become powerful. You are practicing it. And once you experience that shift, you realize that the door you kept hoping someone would open was never locked to begin with. Discomfort is often misunderstood as a warning that something is wrong, when in reality it is usually a sign that something is changing. Growth does not feel smooth or reassuring. It feels uncertain, demanding, sometimes even exhausting. Your mind and body prefer what is familiar because familiar requires less energy and less risk. So when you step into something new, a bigger responsibility, a difficult goal, a different standard for your life, discomfort shows up immediately, not to stop you, but to ask whether you are serious about moving forward. If you retreat every time things feel hard, you train yourself to stay the same. If you stay and work through it, you expand your capacity. There is a version of you that only exists on the other side of sustained effort. But reaching that version requires tolerating the awkward phase where you are no longer who you used to be and not yet who you are becoming. That in-between space can feel frustrating because progress is not always visible. You are putting in effort without immediate results, pushing through resistance without instant reward. Many people interpret that as failure and turn back, choosing comfort over possibility. But the ones who continue understand that discomfort is not punishment. It is investment. It is the tension that strengthens you, the pressure that clarifies what you are capable of handling. Easy paths rarely lead to meaningful places. When something matters, it will demand more focus, more patience, more resilience than you initially think you have. You will question yourself, doubt your decision, wonder whether the struggle is worth it. In those moments, it is tempting to search for shortcuts or distractions, anything that relieves the strain. But relief is not the same as progress. Temporary comfort can cost you long-term fulfillment. Staying with the process, even when it feels heavy, builds a kind of endurance that cannot be developed any other way. As you push through discomfort, something shifts internally. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Challenges that intimidated you start to look like problems you know how to solve. Your tolerance for difficulty increases, and with it, your confidence grows. Not the fragile kind based on positive thinking, but the durable kind based on experience. You begin to trust yourself because you have evidence that you can endure, adapt, and improve. That trust becomes a quiet strength you carry into every new situation. There will still be days when the weight feels too heavy, when progress feels slow, when comfort calls your name louder than purpose. On those days, you don't need to feel brave or inspired. You only need to keep going. One more attempt, one more hour of focus, one more decision aligned with who you are trying to become. Momentum is built through continuation, not intensity. Small steps taken consistently will carry you farther than bursts of effort followed by retreat. If it feels hard, it does not mean you are failing. It means you are being shaped. It means you are stretching beyond the limits that once defined you. The difficulty you feel today is preparing you for responsibilities and opportunities you cannot yet see. One day, you will look back at this period and realize that the discomfort you wanted to escape was actually the force that made you stronger, steadier, and more capable than you ever imagined. Excuses rarely sound like lies when you tell them to yourself. They sound reasonable, justified, even responsible. You tell yourself you'll start when you have more time, more energy, more clarity, more support. You convince yourself that the conditions aren't right yet, that waiting is smarter than risking failure. But while you are waiting for perfect circumstances, time keeps moving. Opportunities pass quietly. Skills you could have built remain undeveloped. The life you say you want stays at a distance, not because it was impossible, but because you kept postponing the moment you decided to act. Every excuse protects you from discomfort in the present while quietly stealing from your future. It trades long-term growth for short-term relief. When something feels difficult, your mind searches for a way out, not because you are weak, but because your brain is designed to conserve energy and avoid risk. If you don't challenge that instinct, it will default to what is easy, familiar, and safe. Over time, those small decisions accumulate. Days turn into months, months into years, and one day you realize the gap between where you are and where you wanted to be is no longer small. There is always a cost to avoidance, even if you don't pay it immediately. The cost shows up as regret, as frustration, as the quiet awareness that you are capable of more than you have allowed yourself to pursue. It shows up when you see someone else doing what you once talked about doing, and you feel that sharp reminder that you delayed too long. Excuses don't eliminate the desire for growth. They just bury it under layers of rationalization until it becomes easier to say, maybe someday, than to risk starting today. Taking responsibility can feel heavy because it removes the comfort of blaming circumstances. Once you admit that your progress depends on your actions, you also accept that your inaction has consequences. But responsibility is not punishment. It is control. It means your future is not decided by luck, timing, or other people's opinions, but by the standards you choose to live by. When you stop explaining why you can't and start asking how you can, your energy shifts from defense to creation. You become solution-focused instead of obstacle-focused. You don't have to eliminate every excuse at once. You just have to stop letting them make your decisions. Start before you feel ready. Begin with imperfect steps. Replace "I can't because" with "I will despite." Action interrupts the cycle of avoidance. It proves that progress is not reserved for those with perfect conditions, but for those willing to move forward anyway. Each time you act, you weaken the hold excuses have on you and strengthen your belief that you are capable of directing your own path.